Welcome to the Friedrich Naumann Foundation Africa Freedom Prize 2024. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for the ALA Marimba Band.
Good evening. Thank you, Marimba. That was an outstanding performance. We love to start our celebrations like that. In recognition of the presence of His Excellency, Monsieur le Président de Seychelles, Wavel Ramkalawan, we're so pleased to have you in our home. Esteemed guests, beloved community, welcome to what promises to be an outstanding celebration of excellence and inspiring leadership. My name is Mariam Triki. I'm from Tunisia. I'm a Year 2 student at the African Leadership Academy, and I'm the conference chairperson of the African Leadership Academy Model African Union. The most prestigious conference. And
my name is Nabwire Goreti Maria, and I'm from the Republic of Uganda. I'm a Year 2 student at the African Leadership Academy. I'm also the conference deputy chairperson of the African Leadership Academy Model African Union. I am currently working with 9 committee chairs to prepare delegate material on the conference theme, strengthening African institutions towards shared peace and prosperity. On behalf of the African Leadership Academy community, allow me to take this opportunity to warmly welcome you to this prestigious event. We also extend our utmost gratitude for being given the opportunity to host the 2024 FNF Africa Freedom Prize as we celebrate His Excellency, the President of Seychelles, for his remarkable contribution to the continent and his passion for youth empowerment.
And now, join us in warmly welcoming, in tribute of the FNF Africa Freedom Prize, the Regional Director of the Friedrich Naumann Foundation for Freedom, Ms. Inge Herbert.
Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together and welcome Regional Director for the Friedrich Naumann Foundation, Inge Herbert.
Thank you very much. Your Excellency, President Ramkalawan, Excellencies, friends, and the leaders of tomorrow. I'm thrilled to be here today at the African Leadership Academy, a place buzzing with energy and ideas, where young minds come together to shape the future of Africa. We are not just here to celebrate an incredible leader, His Excellent President Wavel Ramkalawan, but also to recognize the powerful spirit of teamwork between generations that's driving real change across your continent. The Friedrich Naumann Foundation FNF Africa Freedom Prize honors those who are champions of freedom, democracy, and human rights. This award shines a spotlight on individuals who stand up for what's right, even when the going gets tough. They're the ones working hard to build societies where everyone has a voice and good governance thrives. In previous years, this prize has been awarded to trailblazers like His Excellency Hakainde Hichilema of Zambia, who stood strong as an opposition leader, and Mmusi Maimane from South Africa. We've seen voices like Bobi Wine from Uganda and acclaimed writers like Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie and Tsitsi Dangaremba step into the spotlight. Today, we celebrate a leader who has truly transformed this country, His Excellency President Wavel Ramkalawan of Seychelles. Mr. President, your journey has always been about serving the people, fighting for their rights, and standing up for justice and equality. Under your leadership, Seychelles has become a shining example of democracy in Africa. Your election in 2020 wasn't just a political win. It was a powerful statement. Seychelles for all her children. You've prioritized unity and transparency, making sure that every Seychellois feels included in the nation's progress. A key aspect of President Ramkalawan's leadership is his belief in meritocracy, where positions are earned based on talent, not loyalty. This commitment has helped Seychelles become the least corrupt country in Africa. And a model for others to follow. Seychelles is not just a name on the map. It ranks 21st globally on the Corruption Perception Index and 37th for press freedom, and this is actually quite high if you look how many countries we have in the world. The Ibrahim Index of Governance for 2024 highlighted Seychelles as the top country for good governance in Africa. That's not a small feat. On top of all this, President Ramkalawan champions environmental conservation, continuing Seychelles' legacy as a leader in sustainability. He's pushing for global support to tackle climate challenges faced by island nations, reminding us all of the importance of protecting our planet. Today's award ceremony isn't just about honoring President Ramkalawan. It's about celebrating the vibrant youth of Africa, represented by you here, the classes of 2024 and 2023 of the African Leadership Academy, who are not waiting for tomorrow to lead, but are stepping up right now. Young people across the continent are rising to demand inclusion and accountability, and they're showing us that the fight for justice and democracy is ongoing. As we honor President Ramkalawan today, let's also shine a light on Africa's youth, those who challenge the status quo and advocate for a brighter future. You remind us that each generation has a role to play in this ongoing journey. Mr. President, your dedication to freedom and democracy inspires us all. You show us that true leadership is about serving others and building a better tomorrow. On behalf of the Friedrich Naumann Foundation and all who believe in freedom and human dignity, I want to congratulate you on this well-deserved honor. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Inga Herbert. Good governance, corruption, inclusion, accountability are things that Ms. Inga Herbert highlighted. Africa, things are not going well. In terms of corruption, good governance. I come from a country where my president has been the president for 37 years. Shout out to Bobby Wine. But she called us leaders of tomorrow. And she referred back and emphasized that we are actually not leaders of tomorrow, but leaders of today. Are we going to walk in the same footsteps of those that spoiled the soup? Let's not be those leaders. Let's be better. Let us celebrate the president of Seychelles and use him as an example for where we want to go, where we want Uganda, Kenya, Nigeria to go.
I mean, she's the deputy chair of ALA-MAU, so yeah, even our theme for ALA-MAU is strengthening African institutions for shared peace and prosperity. So we need accountability on the continent so that youth are empowered and the future generation of African leaders is also empowered. And next, let us warmly welcome the Chief Executive Officer of the African Leadership Academy, or as we love to call him, Dean Hatem, on stage.
Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together and welcome CEO of the African Leadership Academy, Hatem El Tayeb.
Good evening, everyone. I thought we got rid of that headshot. I look like a car salesman in that picture. We got to change it. There's a much better one on the website. Your Excellency, Excellencies, distinguished guests, treasured colleagues, and most promising students. Good evening. I want to start by expressing my thanks to Inga and everyone at the FNF Foundation for partnering with ALA over the last few years and for bringing this magnificent evening to our campus. We're very grateful to be friends with you personally and with the organization, and very grateful to be able to host this evening tonight. How many of you are visiting African Leadership Academy for the first time? Please, just by a show of hands. Students, that's very funny. Okay. All right. Thank you. I'll just say a few words very quickly about where you are. What is African Leadership Academy? As you can see, ALA is a vibe. It's also more than that. It is a home, but it's most importantly an intentional community. We were founded in 2008 with a simple premise that leadership potential, fantastic leadership potential, exists evenly distributed across all young people on the continent. But the opportunity to translate that potential into impact is not. What would happen if you built an institution to a world-class standard to accelerate the continent's most promising young leaders into lives of sustained, shared social impact? That's what we're doing. ALA was founded in 2008. We have recruited more than 1,500 students from more than 47 different African nationalities. In the students sat beside you are 16, 17, 18, 19-year-olds from at least 35 different countries from across the continent. There's a few notable exceptions. One particularly notable exception, which I will bring to your attention later on. Our graduates have gone on to earn more than $230 million in university scholarships. They have transitioned very successfully to university, through university, but then most importantly, into careers on the continent and elsewhere of service to this place of abundance, this future that Africa deserves. They have risen to public office, they have founded companies, they are leading organizations. And we have a lot of fun doing it. So I'm thrilled to welcome you all to African Leadership Academy. In the spirit of short-form video content, I will endeavor to keep my remarks brief. Those of you who've heard me speak before me, a little bit less than 10 minutes. Given recent developments in the United States, I'm unsure whether to think of this moment tonight as auspicious, poignant, telling, or foreboding. Like many of you, I am sure I have mixed feelings. On the one hand, I am annoyed with myself. I know a lot more about this morning's election and read a lot more about this morning's election in the United States than I did about last week's election in Botswana, next door. This discomfort rises almost to the level of shame. Shame that I still tend to lend more weight and credence to what happens up there than to what happens down here. At the same time, I forgive myself a little bit because I recognize that some of it is kind of a morbid fascination. For one thing, I am sure we are in for 4 years of fantastic memes. More seriously, my curiosity, my morbid fascination stems from wondering where we are all headed, the biggest all, the humanity all. Where is humanity headed? Where is democracy headed? Where is the global rights-based order headed? And who are the leaders who will take us there? Who are the leaders that will tackle the climate crisis sincerely, that will calm and resolve conflict and deliver dignity to all? I cannot say at the moment, or even frankly for some time now, that I'm feeling particularly inspired. And the memes are small consolation. It's this mess of feelings that makes tonight's event such a gift, such a privilege, and such a balm. Not to put too much pressure on you, Your Excellency. You need to cheer us up. Here at African Leadership Academy, we are students of leadership as a discipline, as a craft, perhaps for some, even as a calling. As with any worthy subject of study, I think it is useful to have a definition, and my definition of leadership is very simple. To me, leadership is taking responsibility. It starts foremost with the very simple private act of taking responsibility for yourself. You get yourself up out of bed in the morning. You get dressed to make sure you don't smell too funny. You get to class. Increasingly complex tasks of self-leadership. You become the chair of, or deputy chair of ALA Model African Union. And after many decades, for some, I think those who are least lucky amongst us, you might rise to the pinnacle of national power to be responsible for a nation. We also, this evening we have the privilege of hosting and learning from someone who has taken on these responsibilities. I will not steal his thunder by relaying his biography, but suffice it to say that this is a journey of stepping up. Taking responsibility, step by step, patiently, diligently, persistently. It starts with a pastoral duty, ministering to souls and communities, and arrives, after many decades, into the presidency. We also have the privilege of hosting and learning from someone who has taken this responsibility in a remarkable place, a place we can all do well to learn from. If we can turn our attention away from distractions in the north, we see in the Seychelles many powerful examples. We see first a nation that is levering its place, its position, its natural gifts to deliver an economy that can serve the needs of its people. We see a government, as well, that is capable of weathering a significant shift of power peacefully. Something we also ought to celebrate Botswana for, by the way. Recently, the Seychelles, as Inga pointed out, was recognized with the top spot in the Mo Ibrahim Index of African Governance, which measures indicators such as participation, human rights, and human development. It's particularly important to celebrate that achievement when you recognize that the report shows that over the last 10 years, half of the countries in Africa have moved backwards on these indicators. Not only are we not making sufficient progress, in some places, we're running in the opposite direction. Importantly, what we see in this island nation, too, is a bellwether of human vulnerability. Some of you will know that only 3 of the 115 islands of the Seychelles are inhabited. Some of you will know as well that the impact of climate change are more pressingly felt there than perhaps anywhere else on the planet. Last night, over dinner, the president was kind enough to offer a geography lesson on Seychellois topography. There are, in that count of 115 islands, 3 types of islands: coral atolls, raised or uplifted coral atolls, and granitic islands. I hope I got that all right. Good enough. Already, the changing tidal patterns have threatened the most secure coastlands of the granitic islands. These are the islands most inhabited. As the president shared with us, as though stalked by werewolves, the people of Seychelles have started to become afraid of the full moon, because the full moon brings the highest tide, and the highest tide floods the land. To defend their homes, the people of Seychelles are experimenting with various means of mitigation, including seawalls. In the uplifted coral atolls, the situation is more dire. Sand that settled up against these escarpments over millions of years, forming beaches, is now being washed away. Not only does this erode the landmass over time, it also erodes habitats. We see here the disruption of sea turtle nesting grounds, the displacement of already endangered fauna. And then, perhaps most tragically, it is expected that many of those third category of islands, the coral atolls, that make up some of these islands of 115 in the Seychelles, those not uplifted by tectonic forces, it is expected that many of these will disappear. Imagine knowing that the place that you're from is slowly drowning. Confronted by such stark, severe, irreversible, existential threat, one might expect that the people of the Seychelles would be angry and fearful. Reflecting too on the fact that these climate impacts are befalling a nation that, due to a tremendous biomass of seagrass in its territory, is likely producing negative net emissions. One might at least expect that their leaders would be bitter and mean. If more than all this, you knew that those leaders had been appearing on every world stage to raise this alarm repeatedly, year after year, for decades, to deaf ears. Worse than deaf ears, to hypocritical ears that promise billions of dollars of mitigation investment that never materialize. You might imagine one would be fuming, embittered, insulted. And yet, tonight, I think you will find the very opposite. I think you will hear a leader whose leadership is grounded in care, in patience, and in kindness. Leadership grounded not in fear, not in anger, not in division, but in love and in service and in responsibility. Excitingly, you'll have the chance to hear this wisdom in conversation. Mr. President will be in conversation with some of our very own students here at ALA. I hope they will do a good job. Better surely than I have done in teasing out the threads of that wisdom, gathering its pearls and weaving for us a finery of inspiration. I will close now with a quick metaphor and a challenge. I wanted to make a metaphor with the first three letters of your name, wave, and waves in the ocean. I couldn't come up with it. So I'll just remind you that we tend to forget that coral is a living thing. Coral is a living organism. And these islands that are drowning are living things. It's composed of organic material of these millions and millions of little lives that over time have built this structure and ossified, collected into this firm thing that you can build on. I wonder if there's a metaphor there for leadership communities. That we learn together, build together, and create a legacy that can last long after we've passed. That's my metaphor. As for my challenge, as I said, we are building a leadership community in Africa, for Africa, by Africans. I invite you all to join. There are some conspicuously missing countries. Seychelles is one of them. We have not yet had a student from the Seychelles at ALA. So, Mr. President, we will guarantee a full scholarship for a student from Seychelles next year if you can find us one. And he will. We are deeply honored to have you here. We're grateful to all the members of the community who have joined us. And students, your rapt attention, please. Enjoy your evening.
Questions to think about from Dean Hattam's note. Where's democracy headed? Who are the leaders who will take us there? And who will deliver dignity to Africa and to all? We, as the African Leadership Academy, we are home for leadership. We create the African dream and we make it come true. I mean, Greti is probably going to become the next president of Uganda, but
Yes.
thank you, Dean Hattam, for your inspiration and for your call to action.
Thank you, Dean Hattam. Talking about leadership, next on the agenda is a video highlighting the Seychelles youth perspective. Forgive me, I'm an Anglo speaker. The Seychelles youth perspectives on His Excellency, the President of Seychelles. Enjoy the video.
Seychelles, renowned for its breathtaking beauty and rich cultural heritage, is also home to a dynamic and forward-thinking generation of young people. As the nation faces global challenges like climate change and economic transformation, the youth of Seychelles are stepping up to lead in fields ranging from education, technology, and tourism. But how involved do they feel in shaping the nation's future? Are their voices heard by the current leadership? And how are they preparing to navigate the opportunities and challenges ahead? Seychelles is cultivating young leaders through its strong education system. Elisa Dogle highlights the scholarships available for studying abroad, while Yohan Ogle emphasizes practical learning opportunities in medicine, preparing students for future success.
As a young student living in Seychelles, I believe the education system is a really good one. They even give you scholarships to go abroad so that you can educate more and get better at your career that you want to do in the future.
Of most recent, I have found it very difficult for me to decide what I wanted to become. But then lately, with more studies and more understanding from my PSC and also careers teacher, I have finally found out that I want to become a general surgeon. Seychelles offers the students various opportunities, like for example NIHSS, which they offer 5 courses, which is they offer certificate in nursing and also advanced certificate in medicine, pharmaceutical awareness, and 2 other more. But the country offers also partnership, like for example in semester breaks, I know some students can go to the Seychelles hospital where they can do work attachment and understand more about medicine itself, and they can get a few ideas about how will it be later on when they go abroad to study what they want to become.
In Seychelles, where environmental issues are critical, Chiara Morel aims to be an agricultural engineer to develop sustainable farming practices. Elam L'Esperance advocates for youth-led climate action, encouraging awareness campaigns to inspire community involvement for a greener future.
I want to become an agricultural engineer because environmental conservation is very important to me, and I believe in the planet's health and well-being and the future generations that depend on it. To create new farming techniques for farmers and other people, and also encourage other people who want to become and help the environment and help in a way or the other for environmental conservation.
As a young student, I think that the youth should be playing a crucial role in addressing the issues of climate change, since we are the future of our country, such as advocacy and awareness, whereby young people can raise awareness in their communities by using social media or by organizing local activities to educate others.
Yohan Ugle discusses his involvement in the Seychelles National Youth Assembly, a platform that empowers young people to voice their concerns and bring forward suggestions directly to the nation's parliament. This initiative ensures that the youth have a say in shaping their future.
Of most recent, there has been a program called the Seychelles National Youth Assembly, whereby we are chosen to speak for the youth and we are to voice out their problems, their concerns, and also suggestions that we later forward on to the Parliament of Seychelles.
Adrian Huaro sees technology transforming industries like construction and fishing, offering new opportunities for young entrepreneurs in Seychelles. Meanwhile, Elena Huaro is passionate about improving tourism services to keep Seychelles a top destination for global visitors.
I see technology shaping my future quite a lot because I'm a huge fan of new technological advancements in society, and I might also have a future career in technology. There's a lot of opportunity for entrepreneurs, young entrepreneurs in Seychelles, in terms of industries such as fishing or construction. There are new advancements in technologies. You can 3D print houses nowadays, or you can automate fishing.
As a young Seychellois, I am fascinated by tourism, and in the future I hope to be part of the tourism industry. And also in the future I would like to see improvements in it so that there will be service excellence that will encourage more tourists to visit our beautiful Seychelles.
The youth of Seychelles are poised to play a vital role in shaping the nation's future through education, environmental advocacy, technological innovation, and tourism. With their ambition and dedication, these young leaders are not only preparing for their careers, but also ensuring a sustainable and prosperous Seychelles for generations to come.
Seychelles, a place that is delivering an economy serving needs of the people, needs of the working class. Thank you, His Excellency, President Wavel, for the impact that you've had on those young lives to raise and support their voices. Yes, Miriam.
Thank you very much. That was a very insightful video. And now, one of my favorite segments, facilitated by an inspiring African leader who studies at the African Leadership Academy. Let us warmly welcome the chairperson of TEDx African Leadership Academy, the president of the African Leadership Debating Union, and we never miss a chance to promote for MAU, so the committee chair at MAU, Denver from Zimbabwe.
Good afternoon, community. My name is Denver. I am having the humble opportunity of moderating today's panel discussion. And the topic of the day, together with the theme at the bottom, is going to be about intergenerational co-leadership and the future of African freedom. So I just want to share some brief context on why exactly we're discussing this topic. So currently, Africa has more than 60% of its population as people who are under the age of 25. What that means is we are both at a privilege of being in that majority population, but we're also at a huge responsibility of changing the African continent. And I think the reason why we're going to have this discussion is because our dear President Ramkalawan, as an individual who has managed to leverage that population in Seychelles. The reason why Seychelles right now is rated #1 for governance, has the highest GDP per capita. That is all because of leveraging that skill. Yes, you can clap. On that note, it is my humble honor to introduce His Excellency President Ramkalawan. Okay, so I kind of hinted at the note that I'm going to be asking him very difficult questions, but I was lying. I'm just going to ask him very insightful questions. And I'll be using this tablet because there's a QR code where all of you can send a question in, and depending on the type of question, I'll ask him that question. But before that,
soft ones.
Soft ones. But before that, I'm just going to ask him maybe 3 main questions that are going to stir the discussion. So, Mr. President, you have been part of the opposition of Seychelles since 1993. You were elected the leader of the opposition in 2011, and you were finally elected as president in 2020. What that means is 2 things. First, you have been opposing and have been, fighting for 27 years. That is
a long time.
You can clap. The second thing that points to is you have a lot of resilience. It takes a great amount of perseverance to sit at this exact spot after 20 years. And I'm sure there's been a vision that you have had that has been inspiring you across each and every one of those years. And I'd just like you to just open up about that vision.
Thank you very much, Denver, and thank you very much for the warm welcome. What Denver just reminded me is that before he was born, and before most of you young leaders were born, I was struggling for democracy. So thank you very much for that very kind reminder. Correction, been leader of the opposition since 1998. So which makes it even a little bit longer.
Wow.
And the record that I've set as the leader of the opposition, I'm not sure whether anyone will break that record in the Seychelles. But the important thing, which I want first of all to share with you, is leadership is not just about looking for a position. Leadership is about believing in principles. And once you have your principles and you believe in them, then you can persist. You can go on. You can fall when you don't win an election, but that doesn't matter because you will get up, because your principles will be there, and you will pick up from where you fall down, and you will continue. So the vision was one of democracy, was one of where the country could go much further and the people would be respected. Because the background from which I came is very important to understand. It was a one-party system. One-party system where democracy was not allowed to function, where there were people who were arrested, there were extrajudicial killings, no respect for human rights. And in the midst of all that, as a young priest, I had to stand up because people came to me. I don't want to share my speech for later on, but I knew what was happening. And I felt duty-bound to help bring about the change. So with my friends, we stood up against what was affecting the people, and we did not choose any shortcuts. And on the way here, I told you, in politics, if you choose a shortcut, then it's probably a coup, it's probably to use arms, it's probably something that will go against the basic rights of people. And I never chose any shortcuts, but I remained steadfast in what I believed. And this is what I want you young people, young leaders of Africa, to stick to. Know who you are. Have principles that you can develop. Do not give up. Do not take shortcuts, but fight for what is right and stand by those very principles, and you will get far.
Thank you so much, Mr. President. I think to cite even an example of him standing up, sometime when he was the leader of the opposition, he established something called the National Assembly Watchdog Committee, which basically tracked all events and activities of the government. And that's the exact same kind of solutions that we need from African people, the same solutions we need from the youth sitting in this very room. Thank you very much. So my first question is, I think you've already touched on all three questions in that very short time, but what exactly do you think is at the core of the Seychelles leadership and governance that makes it so successful?
Denver, again, when I look at the history of the Seychelles, unfortunately, we had leaders who were about themselves. 43 years, we had one party in office. And that one party came through a coup. So that was a shortcut. And that's what I'm saying, do not take shortcuts. Whereas the people were being oppressed and people were being led in a way that did not promote their dignity. The leadership that my friends and myself offered was one where each individual would recognize themselves. They would be empowered. And this is why when the theme for our elections in 2020, when I won, was Seychelles for all her children. And it was important for us to reconcile everybody. It was important for us to bring about peace. It was important for us to be servants of the people. Because too often leaders consider themselves not to be servants of the people, but to be the masters of the people. So again, we had to reverse this trend. And maybe I will say there are too many masters in Africa. Too many masters, and this is why you have presidents who have been in office for over 30 years, some 20 years, and that's the theme of our meeting this afternoon. Because after 30 years, you totally disconnect with younger generations. So that was my style of leadership, and that of my friends. We knew that it would have to be about the people, regardless of which political party you believed in or you voted for, but that we were one nation and that people had the right to have different views. People would be able to express themselves. And today, this is probably one of the reasons why on the Mo Ibrahim Index, we are number one. And as far as freedom of expression, well, it would have been easy if I was a dictator to shut up many people. But what we did was totally different. For example, we decided to remove from our laws the element of criminalizing expression. Okay, whereby, you know, in Africa, a lot of journalists are imprisoned because of what they say or what they stand for. But we said, no, people are free and there should be none of. Now, for the youth parliament, each school has its election of their youth representative. And this has brought about a sort of empowerment, because young people have realized that in order for them to be elected, they've got to present a manifesto, they've got to sell their ideas, and they should not be bribing people, they should not be making false promises, and this has worked very well. In fact, one of the young leaders, and Hakim, I promise you, one of those young men in that video, if he accepts, will be here soon. So the youth parliament has been very active, and next week I will be interacting with them at State House. There's also a youth forum where, again, at the end of this year, where young people from secondary schools, from each secondary school, meet with me, and they have this dialogue. They ask me questions. And every year I make it a must for me to meet the best performers at academic level, but also not only the best performers, but I also go out into the schools. I get letters inviting me to come and visit their schools, and those letters I take seriously. And all in all, I spend quite a bit of time with young people. I always have time for young people because I believe they are, rightly, they are not the leaders of tomorrow, but they are the leaders of today. Because even in primary schools, I mean, the leadership starts there. Responsibilities start there. So this is the basic encounter that I have with young people, and I'm looking forward to speaking and listening to all of you after the ceremony, because I think this is where we'll be meeting each other and discovering each other. Selfies. And so I'm hoping to meet as many of you as possible. And this is what I do back home as well.
I'm definitely looking forward to those selfies. And I think you are sitting in a school where leaders are chosen by the people for the people. We have a student government that speaks to what each and every person in here wants. And each year and each term we get a chance to vote for those people. And I think the same system should be across all African nations. And I'm happy that it's already in Seychelles. Thank you. I think something that I also wanted to just touch on the last question that's coming from my side, is in as much as youth should be involved in these conversations, how are we to ensure that we even have the skills necessary to sit in those conversations?
Well, again, one of the important elements on which we put a lot of emphasis is education. And maybe a lot of, when you are young, you don't really consider education to be your top priority. I'm not saying you didn't consider education to be your top priority, but you will find that the majority of children, maybe it's only later on in life, later on as they get a little older, whilst they are still young people, that they discover the importance of education. But it's important for us right from day one to instill in our youth, in our children, the necessity of education. And And once you've got the basis, that's, this is what is so important for you to then decide what you want to be in life, for you to understand the moral values of life, for you to understand what family is, what community is, what country is, and for you to be able to discern what you want to do, and for you also to be able to analyze what is being presented to you. Because from a very young age, it is very important for you to believe in certain things, because, as they say, if you don't believe in something, you will fall for anything. And too many of our young people simply lose themselves in the first instance along the way. So, education, the number one priority. And once you've got this foundation, just like when you're building a good house, you need solid foundation, or else you will not be able to, build anything on top of that foundation. Everything will just crumble. So emphasis on education, and from there, we will have very strong leaders. We will have youth that will be able to challenge the older leaders, older ideas, and come up with their own ideas. Because remember, you are transforming the world every day. You cannot expect to be living in the world that I grew up. But at the same time, older people tend to say, oh, the youth of today, we don't know where they are heading, and when we were young, this is what we used to do and everything else. But yet, when you look at success, the youth keep doing better. The youth of today run the 100 meters faster than the youth of the 1920s, 1930s, or even the 1960s when I was born. So you've got to have the education, believe in yourself, and then the horizon is the limit. The sky is as high as you will get.
When you don't have anything you stand for, you sway for everything and anything.
You will fall for anything.
And everything. Thank you very much, Mr. President. I think something that is also quite important to address here is that, both generations have strengths. The experience of the older generation, because they have been through it, and that's usually the argument for the older generation. And the poppy innovation of the new generation, the ability to challenge, to keep on challenging what has been known as the norm. How then are we going to ensure that we leverage both skills? And this is a question that's coming from Tunisia.
Sorry, just repeat the last part.
So, how can we guarantee the perspectives of both older and younger generations? And how can those perspectives be represented in decision-making and promoting inclusive and effective governance?
Well, again, when we talk about governance, governance is not the property of one section of society. Governance is about us all. We all form part of the governance of our country, of the governance of our schools. And here again, I would simply say it is important for one to be involved, to be committed, for one to know, what do I want to do? Where do I want to go? And therefore, to challenge the status quo. Status quo has to be challenged at all times. But how can you challenge the status quo if you yourself do not know where you stand? If you're saying one thing today and another thing tomorrow. And again, when I turn back to myself, I knew from a very young age what I wanted to do. And yesterday I was sharing with with Inge and the others, that I so much knew what I wanted to do. I felt the calling to be an Anglican priest, that I followed my studies and found out that I was too young to be ordained. But that was because I knew what I wanted. And when you know what you want, that's where you have consistency. And too many young people today, I mean, I look at CVs of young people who are applying for a job, and during 1 year, they've changed at least 6 to 10 jobs. And I say to them, look, you're going to find it difficult to get a job because your next employer, or where you send your CV, will say, I don't want to employ a butterfly. I want to employ somebody who knows what he wants or what she wants. So consistency, believing in yourself, looking around, analyzing what is happening. And when I say believing in yourself, you have to believe in yourself in order for you to participate. And too many young people feel that, be it politics, be it other things, no, I'm going to keep away. I will not register. But no, you have to register. You have to participate. You have to be a voice that stands up to be counted. Or else, if you don't make your voice count, somebody else will make your voice count. And then you will have no reason for you to complain and for you even to talk about what is happening in society, because everybody is given one chance, and there is one day in the life of any nation where there is real equality, and this is on polling day. Because on polling day, each one of us is given one ballot paper, and we have one vote. But if you decide to stay home or not register, I'm sorry for you.
Consistency and the ability to adapt. I think those are very important skills when it comes to leaving a footprint and leaving a mark in whatever space that you're involved in. And looking at the time that we have, Mr. President, I'm just going to end this with one final question. And so there are so many people who are sitting in here. There are so many people who are going to watch this video. Young people, old people. And the last question is, what's your final message? What's the one thing you would have wanted to hear at 18, or at 20, or at 21, that you think anyone in here deserves to hear? You can think about it.
What is the one thing?
The one message, or a message. It doesn't have to be one statement.
Well, I want to say to all of you young African leaders, Africa is in need of strong leadership. Africa needs our young people. We are a young continent. And it is only through the involvement of our young people that we will have the Africa that we want and the Africa that we deserve. If you as young, you see, I still consider myself young. If you as young people and as the leaders of today, and leaders of today who are aspiring to have greater leadership roles in your various countries, don't apply yourself with the discipline, with the vision, with strong beliefs. Africa will be a continent, as your principal said. Africa will be a continent that will continue to go south. It will not rise. You are the ones who will be able to change that. And I want to encourage you. I want to encourage you because it is possible. And it took me 31 years in politics before, 28, 31. I've forgotten now. It's been so long. But at the same time, I also know that I've been there. I've been around for so long. When I lost an election, I did not give up. I've forgotten how many times I've stood as a presidential candidate before I finally won. But it was not about just winning. It was about persistence. It was about principles. So the one message that I want to encourage all of you is to have solid beliefs. Know who you are. Know what transformation you want to happen in your community, in your country, and on the whole of Africa. I will continue to encourage all young people. I will continue to encourage my own people. I will continue to lead as a servant and not as a boss. So I want to encourage you. I want to encourage you to go along those lines. And I am sure, and I look at all those young faces full of enthusiasm, and you give me hope for Africa. And on the other hand, when I look at the African Union, and when I look at what will be happening next year for the election of a leader of the African Union, do you think I have much hope? No. So I want to tell you, grow up fast and transform this Africa and make it the Africa we want.
Knowing who you are and being able to have the confidence to stand up when you have to stand up. I think those are very important notes, and whatever message you heard, I hope it speaks to whatever you want to do. And speaking of messages, Mr. President, I'm looking forward to the TEDx event next year in February. And these are the kinds of conversations I'm hoping to see, and I'm looking forward to extending an invitation to you. It's these discussions that are going to spark what we need. And on that note, I would like to say thank you so much. It is very clear that the potential, that the growth, the development of the African continent is contingent upon the youth, the older generation too. I'm hoping that you're part of that generation. It's contingent on that vision, those principles, that ability to stand up and be resilient, just as what's happening in Seychelles. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Denver. And I can say to Sir Hatim, anytime he wants me to come here, I'm only a phone call away.
I'm going to leave this time to Ms. Inga to present the award. Thank you so much, Mr. President.
Thank you. Thank you, Dan. Thank you.
I'll definitely call you. I'm going to talk to you afterwards. Okay. We talk about those TEDx
I have now the immense honor to present the 2024 FNF Freedom Prize to dear Wavel Ramkalawan.
Thank you very much. So now you will be able to hear a little bit more of the history, and you will be able to know a little bit more about myself. So let me say, my dear Inge, thank you very much for the warm welcome. Excellencies, the youth, the future of Africa. I want to say a very good evening to you. I am indeed deeply moved by the honor that has been proposed and that has been bestowed upon me. The award, the Africa Freedom Prize, on the initiative of the Friedrich Naumann Foundation, is indeed a great honor for me. I did not know that the foundation was following me. And, you know, it's very important because sometimes in life, you may be doing a lot of things and you don't realize who exactly is following you. And I am indeed deeply honored that the Friedrich Naumann Foundation was following me. But before I go into what it means for me at this point, I want to invite you to join me to revisit my journey in politics and in the national affairs of my country. I was drawn into politics by the circumstances in which my country was in. And that was when I was a young Anglican priest in the church. Seychelles had been through a one-party state. In fact, it was still going through a one-party state in which democracy and the rule of law had been discarded, and which, as a result, citizens were denied of their rights, injustices, persecution of political opponents and innocent people, including extrajudicial killings, disappearances, and illegal imprisonment, were part of the order of the day. As a priest, I was called to share the experiences of those who suffered. Besides expressing my compassion in private, I had to make the choice of whether I should speak out publicly about what was going on or remain silent. I had the opportunity to speak out. I chose to do so in church, in a sermon that was broadcast on radio. And for doing so, the state banned me. I was not even allowed to read a verse of scripture, if that was on radio. That's how bad it was. After this, I was drawn into the underground movement because political parties were not allowed. But I was drawn in the underground movement not for us to carry out illegal activities, but for us to strengthen and to promote the essence of democracy, for us to make known what we believed in. And so there was continuity in what I believed in, and slowly there were more people who were attracted to what was happening. And there was an opposition movement in exile in the UK, but being out there was totally different to being in Seychelles itself. So I kept fighting for multi-party democracy, and eventually we won that fight. Multi-party democracy was established in Seychelles. And so I became the leader of a political party. But at the same time, and here I will say, the church was very supportive of my activities because those activities were part of what the church itself was preaching: respect of human rights, respect of the individual, respect of structures that would be legitimate. So I had the support of the church, and slowly the political situation in the country evolved, and other political parties were formed, and the new homegrown parties had little impact because people were still thinking of the former leaders. But we believed in democracy. And therefore, even though we were not given the importance that we felt we should have been given, we persisted. And you will have noticed that this is one word that I keep using with you young people. Persistence. Don't give up. Insist. Fight. Stand for what you believe in. And this is exactly what I was doing. I was still considered a youth then. I was under 35. And so I kept going at it. And eventually, at the first elections in 1993, after adopting a new constitution, the political party that I was part of won 9%. And this was just enough for us to have one foot inside. I was chosen as the member of the party to go into parliament. And I spoke on every topic because I was there alone. When the motion was on fisheries, I became a fisheries expert. When it was on climate, I had to educate myself in order to speak on those issues. And you will not believe it, but as probably the youngest member of parliament then, and as the sole member of my party, in the first 5 years, in the first mandate, I was the one who asked the most questions. I was the one who brought the most number of motions before the House. And sometimes I didn't even know whether my motions would be seconded. But they felt pity for me. They said, okay, let us second his motion. And they didn't realize that by seconding my motion, that also gave me a right of reply. And so I did everything that I could. So we slowly made progress. And people then started listening to what we were saying. 1993, I went in as a proportionally as a PR member. In 1998, at the second election, I won my constituency. So the party moved from 9% to 27%. Then we moved from 27% in 2001 to 44%. People started listening to what we were saying because what we were saying made sense. And in 1998, as I mentioned, I was also elected leader of the opposition because we defeated the second party of the former president. And in 2020, of course, we won the elections. But you see, because I stood on a number of, 5 times or 6 times, a lot of people were saying, but you've presented yourself as presidential candidate and you've lost. So it's high time you stop doing so. But people didn't realize that they were missing the point. It was not a question of, I had set out to become the president of the country. This was not the goal. The goal was to bring about democratic change in the country. The aim was to set the country on a path of democracy, on a path of respect, on a path of removing the dictatorship that was in existence. It was a path to make a democratic system work in the Seychelles. And this should always be the basis of our struggle in politics. This should be the foundation that we set right from the beginning. And unless we have the democratic principles firmly established, we will not be able to build anything else. So this was the work that I had set out to do. And this is where the persistence, the endurance, and the progress came from. Yes, the conditions were very difficult. The political scene had changed a little from the darkest days, even though we had now a multi-party democracy. Well, we called it a multi-party democracy because we had moved from the one-party state. But the presence of many political parties does not indicate democracy. Democracy is much deeper than just having political parties, because democracy touches you right here. Democracy is much stronger because it's a deep feeling. But it's not only a feeling, but it's about showing respect for your neighbor. It's about guiding others, and it's about standing firm. It's about respecting each other as human beings. And of course, I realized that the principles that I was standing for were liberal principles. And as a liberal, you have, on the one hand, the strong belief in the protection of human rights, and on the other hand, you have a strong economic system whereby anyone can participate. So, with those liberal principles, I found it easy for me to move forward and for me to associate myself with my people. So, an important mission was also to break down the climate of fear that continued to exist, for people to feel that it was their country and that they had a right to its protection and to all the opportunities it could bring. My blood and that of other leaders and supporters were shed for the sake of that democracy. But because we had to succeed, we wiped away the blood, we tended to the stitches that we had received, and we carried on stronger and more determined than ever. The presidential elections of 2015 in the Seychelles was more crowded than ever. There were more candidates. Everybody had found this new freedom, and everybody felt that they could also lead the country, which was good. But at the same time, before those elections, we managed to gather all the opposition together. And we agreed on one simple principle. If we went into those elections and there was a second round, all the other leaders would support the one who had received the most votes. And I was the one who received the most votes. And They kept their promise. Everybody gathered around me, and I lost the elections by 193 votes. So can you imagine, in any part of Africa, if the opposition loses by 193 votes, what would happen? I made sure nothing happened. We went to court, we contested the results, and we lost, because again, there was the influence of the state in the judiciary. We lost, but again, we learned lessons, and we came back because we believed in democracy. We came back, we did the reforms that were required, and the following year, in 2016, the opposition that I was leading won a majority in the parliamentary elections. This should have been the results of the presidential elections. But because of the insistence on peace, of getting our supporters to realize, even though they were angry, to say, no, 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 we're not going down on the streets, we're not going to burn the country because it's our country. And we want to be able to lead this country. And so why should we destroy it? It's a tourist destination. And if tourists learn that there's violence in Seychelles, they will keep away from the Seychelles, and what will be the state of our economy? Because our GDP, tourism brings in 65% of our GDP. So again, we believed that our time would come. And so in 2020, we had the elections, and I won by an overwhelming majority of 55% of the votes. And at the same time, during those years in the opposition with a majority, we did not act like we were in charge. Yes, the president was from another party, but we had this dialogue. We sat down with him. We had to approve his ministers. And so we said to him, well, these are some of the conditions on which we believe should be present in order for us to approve your ministers. So we gave him ministers. We did not give him all the ministers he wanted, but we gave him ministers. The country continued to function. We passed laws. We brought amendments to those laws. So it was always moving forward. And we also had bipartisan agreements. For example, during those years, when I was leading a majority in Parliament, that was the time I brought a motion to have a Truth and National Unity and Reconciliation Commission in order for us to look at, well, we basically went through the same process as South Africa went through, in order for us to see what those dark days really entailed. So all in all, we had this bipartisan approach to many things, and this is what brought about a peaceful transition in 2020. People were scared of the military, because after all, it was a liberation army that had brought the previous party into power in 1977. But everything went smoothly, and the former president, Mr. Faure, was also played a very important role. And to this day, we are friends. I support him in the missions that he is called upon to perform in many of the SADC countries, for example, in observation of elections. So this is what democracy is all about. It's about you having your way of thinking, me having mine, but we can still sit down and talk. We do not need guns. We do not need a coup. We do not need violence, but we can sit down, work things out, and move. So, my dear friends, for me, this should be the future of Africa. Africa should be a continent where we put the guns down, where the guns are silenced, and where the young people of Africa lead this continent into peace, into democracy, into economic development, where we give our continent the place it truly deserves on the world stage, and where we're not just talked down to by others, by the West, but where we, the young and intelligent leaders of Africa, can stand up and see how we can develop our countries instead of just exporting everything, but to see what we can contribute. So again, it is an immense pleasure that I experience today as I stand here before you to receive the Africa Freedom Prize. To me, it means a lot, because it also means that when we do what is right, we are recognized. And so again, I want to say thank you very much to the Friedrich Naumann Foundation. Thank you very much to all these various organizations with which I have worked, to all those many people who have stood by my side and who have given me the encouragement. And I can tell you one thing. Elections will be held next year in my country. The people will decide whether they want me back for a second and final term, or whether they want somebody else. But I can tell you, follow the Seychelles. If I lose, I will live quietly. I will go back home, enjoy my grandchildren, and encourage you, the young leaders. This is what I will do. I will not take up arms and fight and try to get back into office. So thank you very much for your attention, and I want again to encourage everyone to follow the path of peace, to follow the path of democracy, to believe in yourself, to have a vision, and that vision is what will make your respective countries stand out. It is that vision that you have as young people that will help your country become number one on the Mo Ibrahim Index. It is that vision that will help your country to put the resources at the disposition of your population, to give your young people the best education, to give your population the best health services, to bring about this element of peace and prosperity. This is what life is all about. And please, 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 young people, remain yourself. Remain who you are today. Lead a simple life. Positions will come, but don't let positions go to your head. Never do that. Never do that. And titles can easily confuse you. Your Excellency. Don't let those titles come after you. Your parents gave you a beautiful name when you were born. Let this be the title you walk with, the title that makes you proud. I thank you.
you very much for your excellency, for the inspiration that we all needed. May you please remain up on stage for a photo opportunity. Dean Hattem, Ms. Herbert, and Denver, may you please join us on stage.
So I guess I'll hold the.
Today's event, I guess, has been a learning opportunity for all of us. Seychelles, as the president has already elaborated, has been a one-party system. No democracy, no acknowledgement of human rights. And His Excellency felt the moral duty to bring about change. So we all should. We have enough African masters on the continent, and we need more servant leadership. In His Excellency's words, don't let positions get to your head, because leadership is not about positions, it is about principles.
If you don't make your voice count, someone else is going to make your voice count. Someone else is going to speak for you. Youth engagement, registration, and voting is essential. So 1, know who you are. 2, don't give up. 3, don't take shortcuts. Don't take shortcuts. And 4, have your principles and stand by your principles. Thank you, His Excellency.
Thank you very much. And now, let us again welcome the Marimba Band for another outstanding performance. Thank you very much, Marimba, for delighting us once again. We have come to the end of tonight's celebration. Being your hosts has been our utmost honor. My name is Mariam Triki and...
My name is Goreti Nabire. Thank you very much. Thank you all for coming. Thank you for celebrating with us as we celebrate the President. So we would kindly request LA staff and LA students to remain seated in your seats as the student ambassadors lead our guests to the dining.